what's going on. Let's see what's happening in the news today. So, something that caught my eye this morning is now that RFK Jr. is starting to make his rounds through the Senate. I think everybody knows that he's got some controversial opinions about things like vaccines and whether vaccines cause autism. He's been very outspoken about what the COVID vaccine allegedly, causing all kinds of health issues. And he's no stranger to this stuff way before he even decided to run for president. But there was an article this morning in the New York Times about how RFK Jr. wants to ban drug ads, so pharmaceutical companies, from advertising on, I think it's on TV. Yeah. RFK Jr. wants to ban drug ads on TV. It won't be easy, says the New York Times. And so I did read this article, and I thought there were some interesting tidbits on here about how much money drug companies spend advertising on TV. And, we've all seen it, and I'm sure many people have seen stuff like the Ozempic ads. I think Hims and Hers also advertise Ozempic. There's just a lot of stuff. Everybody's heard the ads where, ask your doctor about Cialis, or ask your doctor about some medication, and at the end they go, this drug might cause suicide, chronic bleeding, death, and all kinds of stuff. They kind of sneak it in at the end. So I think this is interesting for a few reasons, because there's no shortage of reasons why RFK, people might look at him and think he's crazy, or he's got some really out there ideas. But frankly, this one isn't so bad. One of his Make America Healthy Again platform does speak to the idea that, he was saying that we're over medicated as a country, and does, I think, raise a good point about why are we one of the only two countries in the world, the US and New Zealand, to allow pharmaceutical advertising direct to consumers. What is the benefit of saying, ask your doctor about this product, when your doctor should be the one that is recommending to you different treatments. And I guess just even the idea that it has to be a drug, it has to be some sort of pharmaceutical product that you have to ask your doctor about. You don't get ads that say, ask your doctor about lifting weights, ask your doctor about walking 3 miles a day, because obviously nobody makes money off of that. But when it comes to pharmaceutical companies, there is, I think, a pretty complicated relationship between your doctor, the pharmaceutical company, your insurance company, pharmacy benefit managers, the government, that create, I think, a lot of misaligned incentives, where I think we saw it with, if you follow what happened with the opioid crisis, you see that there are these systems in place that let doctors prescribe drugs, get kickbacks for just prescribing drugs, and really it being more of a cash grab for them if they can prescribe you a brand name drug over a generic one. And so again, full disclosure, I'm not a doctor. I can't say that I am an expert in this space, but I watch TV. And I see that, especially if you're watching stuff like cable news, cable TV, CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, if you watch it during the day, especially, you'll notice that a lot of these advertisements are geared toward, older people who are tuning in. And in this article, they mentioned some of that, where they say that if you were to ban pharmaceutical ads, that it would cause some issues for cable companies and these networks that rely on this ad revenue. And if you think back, I think this was maybe the 2016 debates, 2016 or 2020. No, it was a 2020 Democratic primary. They spent a lot of time talking about whether the candidates wanted to abolish the private insurance system. And, they just wasted a lot of airtime on things that a president can't do unilaterally. But they would almost all those debates, you can go back and watch them. They almost all start with, do you support Medicare for all? Do you support nuking private insurance? And then they would immediately cut to a commercial advertising some sort of pharmaceutical product. So it does, I think, call into question how neutral these networks are when you're actually talking about getting rid of something that helps them pay their bills. So here they say the push against TV drug ads threatens to dent the revenues of pharmaceutical companies, which can make back in sales 5 times as much as they spend on commercials, according to some analysts. It could also create uncertainty for major television networks, which bring in substantial revenue from pharmaceutical advertising trying to reach older viewers who tend to take more medications. This part I thought was really interesting. Though it's not clear how such a ban might happen, Mr. Kennedy has called for an executive order. Any attempt would face an uphill battle. Efforts to modestly restrict drug ads have repeatedly been defeated in the courts, often on First Amendment grounds. The first Trump administration tried to require that commercials mention the drug's price, but a judge blocked the move, saying it lacked authority from Congress. Modern drugs aimed at consumers began appearing in the newspapers and magazines in the 1980s. For years, they were kept off TV. So this goes back to the first Trump administration and this use of the First Amendment, in my opinion, as a way to weaponize the First Amendment and freedom of speech against people. Because you're saying that, well, it's this corporation's free speech, it's this network's free speech to air these ads. But let's take alcohol, for example. Alcohol ads legally can't show anybody drinking alcohol in the ad. That's why when you see a Grey Goose ad or a Johnny Walker or anything like that, they're never drinking. They're always having a good time. They're always dancing. They're always stirring. But they don't show them drinking. Same thing with cigarettes. Cigarette ads aren't a thing on TV anymore. They used to be, but they're not anymore. And there's a reason for that. It's because of health reasons. So why do pharmaceutical companies and why do things like, here we go. In subsequent years, pharmaceutical companies spending on TV advertising exploded. In the 2000s, Merck's TV ads helped make the painkiller Vioxx a blockbuster before it was taken off the market for raising the risk of heart attack and strokes. More recently, the flood of TV ads has helped generate demand for Ozempic. So I think RFK Jr. has said something about how he's against Ozempic. The Biden administration, I think, is trying to, on its way out, get Medicare to cover Ozempic. I don't know about Medicaid. And I think Elon Musk, President Elon, has mentioned that I think he's taken Ozempic and he's for it. But, it's like kind of this idea of our health has gotten so bad, our eating, our lifestyles, our health has gotten so bad that the only way back is with more drugs that we don't really understand the long-term effects. So, I'm definitely not, I wouldn't put myself in the camp of saying that all vaccines are bad, because they're not. They've helped eradicate a lot of diseases, but I also am hesitant to reflexively want to defend pharmaceutical companies just because, RFK or maybe the Trump administration has it out for them. And so one thing I wanted to dig into was this judge that blocked the move. And so why was this move blocked? And so then I pulled up this article from NPR, 2019, July 2019. Judge blocks Trump rule requiring pharma companies to disclose drug prices in TV ads. So why? And I'll give you a little bit of background about just when I worked in advertising. So I worked in advertising and ad tech for many years. And we would serve pharmaceutical ads. So just how you see here on the right side, the banner, you would see these pharmaceutical ads. And they were heavily regulated. They would have to show this. We had the special pharma format that would be the ad. So something like what you see here on the screen. And then underneath it, they would have to disclose all the side effects. The same way that when you watch the commercial, there's you might, they quickly say, like, here, if you experience any of these side effects, please contact your doctor. So there are regulations, and then, when they say that you can't disclose the prices, it probably has something to do with insurance companies, that it can't be the same price for everyone, which is a whole issue unto itself. But who was the judge that blocked this? A federal judge Monday stopped the Trump administration initiative that would have required drug makers to reveal the sticker price of their drugs in television ads. Amit Mehta, DC, it says that HHS does not have the regulatory power to make drug manufacturers, including the cost of drug, to make drug manufacturers include the cost of drugs in television commercials, halting the rule. The policy very well could be an effective tool in halting the rising cost of prescription drugs. But no matter how vexing the problem of spiraling drug costs may be, HHS cannot do more than what Congress has authorized. So, and then critics pointed out that the rule was toothless since there was no enforcement mechanism. So regardless of, I think, what administration is trying to do it or where this is coming from, whether this is virtue signaling or this actually was intended to make a difference, there are questions of constitutional authority. So if HHS has the authority to do stuff like this, and why, I don't know enough about it to say, what was the follow-up or what the Trump administration tried to do, but this is a judge that Obama appointed in 2014. He handled, I think, the January 6th case. Yep. January 6th, Capitol related. And then in 2024, August, he ruled that Google is a monopoly and has violated antitrust laws. So having worked in advertising, that's the Google monopoly. That is something that I think is true. I can do a separate video about that. But, I'm not trying to say that this guy's, either taking money from Big Pharma or anything like that. Like, I think the ruling, it's just interesting to note, the ruling was halted 5 years ago. Now they're saying it has to be an executive order potentially, but there do seem to be a lot of roadblocks in the way of making something as simple as, maybe we shouldn't be one of the only two countries in the world that advertises pharmaceutical products on TV. So when thinking about, what RFK Jr. might do at HHS, let's keep going through this article. The pharmaceutical industry is on track to spend over $5 billion on national television advertising this year. The most aggressive campaigns are for newer medications that haven't gone generic, but they compete in a crowded field of similar drugs to reach patients with common conditions like arthritis and diabetes. So there's just this massive, massive investment on behalf of these pharmaceutical companies. And I'm sure if you talk to people who work in the pharmaceutical industry, there are reasons why they say that they have to advertise this way, and that there's an argument to be made that the reason the U.S. pays more for drug prices is basically because we're funding research we have to fund research for other future medications. But I think this is also a bipartisan thing, that if you listen to people like Bernie Sanders or even Trump, they'll say similar things about how we're being ripped off by pharmaceutical companies, that other companies or other countries have far more regulation around what pharmaceutical companies can charge us for their drugs. You take insulin, for example. In Canada, I think you can get insulin for as little as, I think it's $15, $20. My family has a long history of diabetes, and whenever we've tried to get insulin, pay out of pocket because we have issues with insurance, they've tried to charge me $400 for 30 days worth of insulin. That's something that people need to live. And so it's like, how is that allowed to happen in what's supposed to be the richest country in the world? Research has found that the majority of top advertised drugs offer little to no medical benefit compared to existing treatments. Goes back to what I said earlier. There are no advertisements for, hey, you should eat healthier. Broccoli isn't, nobody says ask your restaurant about broccoli, ask your grocery store about broccoli. There are no advertisements for it. Mr. Kennedy contends that the drug ads are steering sick Americans towards useless medications, contributing to a high rates of chronic disease in the U.S. And I think that's true. They're not making us healthier. In a true free market, and if we were getting good information, we wouldn't be taking so many of them. I agree with that. Our healthcare system, especially with this stuff recently in the news of this Luigi Mangione guy killing the CEO of United Healthcare, there are obviously big frustrations with the insurance companies, insurance industry as a whole, the healthcare system. I recently tried to get insurance on my own because I'm self-employed, and my experience was a nightmare. I had to call this. I ended up searching online. I Googled for an insurance plan. I ended up getting onto what I thought was a government marketplace. It wasn't. And I entered my information. Suddenly I get a phone call about setting up an insurance, getting an insurance plan. Spent about 40 minutes with somebody, and then realized that I was actually signing up for what was called a health plan, not an insurance plan. And technically, they didn't lie to me. It wasn't illegal. I asked them. I wanted something cheap. I'm pretty healthy. I go to the doctor once a year for checkups, annual preventative type stuff. But I learned that the health plan that they were trying to set me up for is basically not accepted anywhere. So they wanted to charge me $700 a month for an insurance plan that isn't going to cover anything. It has something called a prepay instead of a copay. Copay is when you pay $25, $50, and then your insurance covers the rest. They were going to charge me a $25 prepay whenever I went to go see a doctor, and that was going to be for me to pay $25 up front and then pay the rest after. That was the plan that I was being offered. And so, when you've got this Byzantine system of healthcare, insurance, providers, in-network, out-of-network, deductibles, premiums, just all these different ways of saying what we're not going to cover and what it's going to cost you, there's a reason people are frustrated with the system. And I think the media's coverage of a lot of this stuff is always, if you've watched any of the Luigi Mangione stuff, it's very obtuse. You know, I'll see if I can pull it up. I'll pull up this Caitlin Collins interview. That was really insane. Let's go back to the rest of this article, though, and then I'll pull that up. Mr. Kennedy is fond of pointing out that the U.S. and New Zealand are the only wealthy countries that do not sharply restrict prescription drug advertisements. Other countries are healthier, he argues, because they don't air such commercials. His critique incorporates two of his favorite villains, the drug industry and large news networks. He has claimed that the TV drug ads function as a payment to broadcasters to suppress unfavorable coverage of the industry. Makes sense, right? If you're watching CNN or Fox News or any of this stuff, and then immediately you get an Ozempic ad, doesn't that impact the way that they would cover stuff like that? They could say that there's journalistic integrity and they're not going to, but at a certain point, you've got to look at, well, who's paying to keep the lights on? Who's paying to advertise to these viewers? He has complained in particular that television networks would not give airtime to claims about a link between vaccines and autism, a theory that's been discredited. Well, yeah, I think that's where you can agree with some of what he's saying without it being a wholesale endorsement of his politics and general point of view. I think he's got a lot of really crazy views on vaccines and vaccines causing autism that he has failed to show real evidence for. I think we can be adults and we can carry two thoughts at the same time and say pharmaceutical companies are not our friends, insurance companies are not our friends, and then Robert F. Kennedy says some batshit crazy, believes some batshit crazy things as well, and he can be an idiot. Don't forget, he's a Kennedy. He's been, despite all the tragedy in his life, he's grown up as basically American royalty. So given his path, he probably doesn't hear no a lot. It's just people surrounded by people who support, him because of his name, because they want to be around him. People like Anderson Cooper, like Jake Tapper, are really pharmaceutical reps. He has also falsely claimed that Pfizer pays most of Mr. Cooper's salary. Let's see. Spokeswoman for CNN. Advertisers play no role whatsoever in influencing our content or story selection. I don't think that that's totally true. Because there are organizations that exist out there, and I know this from working in advertising, that exist to try to shame advertisers into getting stuff off the air. It's what happened with Tucker Carlson. It happened with Breitbart. And whether you agree with those outlets or not, they tend to be conservative outlets. There are people who are out there who say you should try to kill the show. I think that happened to X. Elon last year at the Deal Book conference said it, where he was saying if advertisers don't advertise on X, they're going to kill the company. And I think it's disingenuous to say that advertisers play no role. I think you could say, yes, there isn't a representative from Pfizer in the room reviewing Anderson Cooper's monologue, but to say that there's no role whatsoever, I don't think is true. They say that it's a low digit percentage. So, when you ask people in this industry, they say that it's not. It's minimal. It doesn't matter, but I'm not sure that that's true either. The American Medical Association has called for a ban over a decade ago. So I think this could be a place where there's a real opportunity to make a difference. And whether you agree with this politics or not, that we can make a dent in just reducing the influence of pharmaceutical companies and drugs in our lives through someone who may be an imperfect messenger, but occasionally has the right message. Les, I did a search on Perplexity about New Zealand and the U.S. compared to the rest of the world. So the U.S. is known for high pharmaceutical prices and spending compared to other countries. Generally, all U.S. drug prices across all types, brand name and generic, were 2.78 times higher than comparison countries in 2022. Brand name drugs over 3 times higher. U.S. spends a larger and growing share of its total drug expenditure on new medications compared to other nations. But the U.S. also has some positive aspects. Most new drugs becoming available in the U.S. before other countries. The U.S. has lower prices for unbranded generics, assuming, I guess, your insurance company covers it. France and Japan have lower prices for various drug categories, including brand name originator drugs and biologics. I'm not sure what that is. Canada, Germany, and the UK tend to have higher prices across different drug subsets, still lower than the US. So it's a complicated issue. You know, I think once you start getting into weeds and people start to try to, you know, you try to understand, well, what is the actual, how do the prices that we pay fund drug research? But I think the facts speak for themselves when you look at the U.S.'s healthcare system, our health outcomes, the stuff that Bernie Sanders has been saying forever, that it's just we pay more than every other country for insurance and healthcare and are experiencing worse outcomes. And I think that's why people are pissed. But let's look at, there was an interview, let's see, Caitlin Collins interviewing, where is it? She interviews Luigi Mangioni's attorney. And there's this really crazy... No, let's see.
Poke holes.
I can't... Let me see if I can find it on YouTube. This one.
Big ideas. Don't.
A law enforcement official who was briefed on the matter is telling us here at CNN that along with that 3-page handwritten claim of responsibility.
This is right after they caught him.
And what happened to him ever since? My lead source tonight is the attorney who is representing Luigi Mangioni, Thomas Dickey, and it's great to have you here, sir. I just want to say thank you. I know this has been moving very quickly, and you said earlier you were retained today to represent him. And so can you just tell us, how's your client doing in jail tonight?
Well, Caitlin, thank you for having me. I'm a young man, and your common sense, I'm sure.
Well, you've been an attorney for decades. What did you make of the way he went into court earlier?
Yeah, I'm not going to comment on something unfortunate. So I haven't had a chance to analyze that, hear all that. It's actually on
course, and we learned about what happened in there. You're fighting.
But again, the permits that somebody in Luigi's position has the opportunity. I haven't faced any decisions and
charges.
That's why I need to look at. And people don't worry about the Constitution.
I know you highlighted earlier and emphasized innocent until proven guilty. I understand that. But I read this.
How much we can see
is with offers.
Comment on that. I've been retained. I'm not court appointed.
This is the part where she starts asking him about his people offering to pay him to represent Luigi.
I've been retained. I'm not court appointed. I've been retained, and that's all I can tell you.
We had seen reports earlier
that
there was, people were inundating you with offers to help pay for his legal bills. Is that accurate?
I have received some emails. I have not seen them personally, but my understanding from my staff is people are doing that.
That people are reaching out to you and offering to help pay for his legal bills.
That's correct.
Would you accept those offers? I mean, I imagine you maybe have, I don't know,
Nah.
have you ever gotten that before?
Nah, to be honest with you, I probably wouldn't.
Why do you think you would not accept that?
So I think this line of questioning is beyond, like I get that she's doing her job and that this is, if you're not familiar with the story, she's asking questions that to help inform the audience. But I think people cover other people's legal bills all the time. If you go back to the Hulk Hogan Gawker case, Peter Thiel paid for Hulk Hogan's legal bills to help bankrupt Gawker. There are cases, I forget, Reid Hoffman, I think even more recently than that, was helping fund, I think allegedly helping fund lawsuits against Trump. So this is very common. I think it's just very interesting. It's very telling that when it's crowdsourced, when it's people, like defending a controversial person, a murderer, alleged murderer, that there's kind of this obtuse coverage about like, why would you not accept that? Why are people doing this? I think that's what she asked coming up.
I don't know. I just I don't know. I just don't feel comfortable about that. So I don't know. I haven't given that much thought, but I'm not looking, obviously my client appreciates the support that he has, but I don't know. I just, I'd have to look in, but it just doesn't sit right with me, really.
Why do you think they're offering?
It's obvious. It's obvious why people are offering, because they have had to deal with insurance companies, because people don't feel that much sympathy. And I think the media coverage, they're obsessed with this guy, and I've never seen so many pictures of someone in jail, going to jail, in and out, all this stuff. I think if you go to the front page of the New York Times right now, they can't seem to get enough pictures of this guy. I think all the major outlets. But I think, why do you think people are doing this? It's because nearly everybody has had some kind of run-in, myself included, where insurance coverage is denied, people losing family members because they can't get medicine. People hate the system. It's very, very obvious that people hate the system. And again, you can carry two thoughts in your brain at the same time and say, this guy is not a good guy. He killed somebody in cold blood, and that's bad. And what insurance companies do is also very, very bad.
I don't know. People, you talk about, the Supreme Court says, all these rich billionaires can give all kind of money to candidates, and that's free speech. So maybe these people are exercising their right to free speech and saying that's the way they're supporting my client.
You noted there that you said he appreciates the support that he's getting. Did he acknowledge that when you had a conversation?
Anyway, I think that's a good example of, when there are pharmaceutical companies, going back to this original article, that when it's pharmaceutical companies, there are a lot of different people who are paid to justify how it works and why. And, here we have this guy who goes rogue and commits a crime, and there's a lot of just surprised kind of coverage about it, of just like, why do people feel this way? And whether it's very online or it actually captures the sentiment of the country, there hopefully will be some progress on at least this pharmaceutical ban for TV ads. And whether you agree with RFK or not, or the Trump administration or not, that this is, on its face, a seemingly good thing. Anyway, that's it. I'll catch you next time.